Hello and welcome to the Goldenrod Podcast, bringing you some of the latest and greatest Pokemon news and a few laughs along the way. I'm Ben, and as always, I'm joined by fellow Pokemon enthusiast Conor. Before we begin, you can jump around the podcast by using the timestamps in the description below. Conor, how's it going?
I'm doing all right, mate. I've had no end of technical issues today, though. I will admit. Like, I started today with no internet.
Oh.
So it's all been downhill since then, really. My Wi-Fi extender pods that I got sent by my ISP just stopped working. So I've had no internet on my PC for about 3 days. My main hub works. I still have Wi-Fi, but my PC runs off Ethernet. So I have like an extender to run the Ethernet cable through. And I rang them up today. I went, hi, it's not working. They said, have you tried to turn it on and off again? I said, of course I have. I used to work in tech support. Stop it. And they said, all right, we'll have to send you out new ones. It's like, okay, how long is that going to take? Oh, about 3 or 5 days. I'm like, all right. And until then, like I use this thing for work. What am I supposed to do? Wait 3 or 5 days? I'm like, that's not a good response, sir.
Who you with?
With the Virgin Media.
Oh, okay, right. I'm with Vodafone, who aren't great, but when I moved into this house, it was either them or I think Sky that wanted a hell of a lot more money. Have I ever told you about when I moved house and I tried to move the internet with me?
No.
No, okay, right. So, moving house, typical thing, just contact your internet supplier and just go, I'm moving house. Okay, not a problem whatsoever. All I need to do is take a few details. I'll complete the moving home form, and then you just take your router with you, you plug it in, and then on the day that you have arranged to move, you will get internet at some point during that day, but they can't tell you exactly when. Like, that's absolutely fine. I'm not going to be using the internet for the first day or two because I'm going to be painting, cleaning, tidying up, whatever it might be. Got in there day one, plugged in the internet, nothing. Thought, okay, that's fine. I'll try the next day. Nothing. So I'm like, okay, right, I'll give it a couple more hours. Called up, got passed around for several hours, only to find out that they hadn't completed the moving home form. They'd completed the please end my service form. At which point, I'm panicking because I've only got, I think it was 3 days at this point before I needed to start work. And I was working from home full time at that point. And I was like, what can we do? And this person on the phone wasn't very helpful, but just went down the line of, okay, right, we'll get you set up again, won't be an issue. Taught me through all these things, really reassured me. And then at the very end, he was like, okay, so you'll be connected in about 2 weeks. Is there anything else I can help you with? And there's just this awkward silence where I thought, have I misheard him? Like 2 weeks? Like, so I had to reiterate, 2 weeks? He's like, yes, 2 weeks. And I just couldn't get anywhere. So in the end, they sent me out one of those like 4G dongles, which really embarrassingly
does the job, but it's not where you want it to be.
It's not. And I don't know about you, but like where I live, my internet is rubbish. I've got the bare bones. I have the basic internet connection speed, and the 4G dongle actually work faster, which says a lot about my internet, I think.
Yeah. See, I pay a lot for my internet as well. Like, for the fact that I don't have TV, I don't have phone or anything else. I just have internet. I pay quite a bit for it, and it's infuriating. But anyway, let's talk about something slightly less infuriating. Let's talk about Pokemon.
Should we start then with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet sales update? After my kerfuffle last week.
After your faux pas, sir.
My faux pas. Well, we have checked and we have double checked, although Conor came out with this statistic. So if it's wrong this week, blame him, not me. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet have now sold 20 million units. And
as of December 31st. So it will have sold more since then.
Sold more. Wow. And the Nintendo Switch has sold 120 million consoles, which means if you do the math, if you do a quick bit of maths, and we'll do it for you here, 1 out of every 6 Switch consoles possesses either Pokemon Scarlet or Violet.
Which is kind of insane. I know we're not like, last week we hyped it up. It was like, 30 million sales. It's going to beat Pokemon Red and Blue. All right, it's 20 million sales. That's still insane. it's still probably going to beat Pokemon Red and Blue. Even Cerebi Joe came out and said that when he announced this information. And a sixth of all Switches have Pokemon Scarlet or Violet. That's it's so crazy.
It is absolutely like crazy, and we kind of spoke about this very briefly before starting up, because there will be obviously some people that have both games, which skews it slightly. But you rightly pointed out that there's people who in households that have more than one Switch. I have 2 in my house. My brother has 3, so it gets skewed slightly anyway. So the real question then is, how long before Scarlet and Violet becomes the best-selling Pokemon game? It's a matter of time. Yeah, it's not a matter of when. It's not a matter of if. It's a matter of when at this point.
To be fair, it has just had the holiday season, so it's had the biggest bump it's going to have. Mm-hmm. But as I said last week, DLC is going to make a massive difference as well.
It is, and like the thing with Red and Blue is, it's not really selling. Well, it's not selling anymore because the 3DS shop is shut down now. Is that right? So it's flat out not selling anymore. Scarlet and Violet will be selling new copies for several years now. So it will eventually just leapfrog Red and Blue, and I'm excited for that. I really am. To just see a new Pokemon game up there. Should we move on to the next topic?
Yes. Oh, I do want to add something onto the end of that one, though. Because last week we were a little bit like, oh, it's had great sales despite its performance. Is this going to send the wrong message? There's actually been an interview with with one of the Nintendo of Canada representatives, who flat out said that they apologize for the state Pokemon is in. They have taken the feedback on board and will adapt for the future.
Yeah.
It's
interesting. Okay.
So it's not just over. They're not seeing this as a win. This is still an L as far as they're concerned.
Agreed. I mean, we did an episode a couple of months back, just after the launch. I think it was the episode or second episode after the launch of Scarlet and Violet, where we spoke about whether or not an update would fix this. We are due one in February. They've been very tight-lipped on what it is, and the information they put out about what it will cover has also been very, not very descriptive. So no doubt in the next couple of weeks when that patch lands, we will have a lot to talk about then. So keep your eyes open, I guess. Watch this space for more Scarlet and Violet updates. Speaking of Pokemon games going wrong, should we talk about Pokemon Go?
Yeah. So Niantic had an issue. Yesterday, as of day of recording, so 7th of February. Niantic had a problem. Across a lot of their games, a lot of their apps, the official statement says that they had intermittent issues across all of their apps. Some made the apps unable to launch, and some just made the features not work. The way it impacted Pokemon Go meant that some people couldn't evolve their Ursaring into Ursaluna. Now, why is this such a big issue? Well, it's such a big issue because Ursaluna can only evolve on one day a month. And it was yesterday. And they couldn't do it.
It just blows my mind that, like, I get that, okay, gimmicks in the main game where it just feels like there should be a split between gimmicks in the main game and gimmicks in Pokemon Go. But I can't explain why I feel that way, which is infuriating me. But it feels like Pokemon Go is on the go, and you should just be able to do the stuff as and when. And it just feels bizarre to me that, like, okay, right, I know what the reason is. It's because in Pokemon Go, in the Pokemon mainline games, for the most part, they've been very consistent with the Pokemon evolution methods that are gimmicks, such as trading, stones, all the different ways that you can do it. Pokemon Go just kind of it's almost like they've got two pieces of paper stuck on the wall. One says yes, one says no, and they just throw a dart. Because, like, stone evolutions, okay, Eevee, yeah, you don't need stone evolutions. But then the later generations came out, it's like, no, now you need a Sinnoh stone. It's like, wait, what? Like, but we didn't need stones for the other evolutions, but these ones we do anyway. So it's just strange to me that Ursaluna, they've given it this one evolution method that you can only do one day a month, and like, let's be honest with you, how, like, a stone evolution is pretty simple. You just go into your bag, you add it, you can do whatever. Like, who was tracking the lunar cycle to go, okay, on this date, I need to evolve this? But, like, that's just busy work outside of the game that I don't want to have to do.
But is it not fulfilling the promise of Pokemon Go of bringing you into the world of Pokemon and letting you live it for real?
No, it's not. Like, just me just sat outside staring at the moon and my wife going, what you doing? Any day now. Any day. This.
Well, you should track the lunar cycle. It's good for you.
No, I'm not doing that. It's just busy work outside of
Have
Pokemon
your lunar
Go.
calendar hanging on the wall. We've just passed Imbolg. The next festival will be coming up soon.
Oh, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just out. Maybe everyone else just is aware of the lunar cycle. Maybe they've all got apps or a calendar for it, and it's just me being out of touch.
Yeah. I have to follow the lunar cycle because it sends me crazy. So
oh, really?
That's
okay.
my excuse.
I do need to. I do want to touch on the, like, Pokemon Go downtime because for two reasons. One is it is nowhere near what we've got now is nowhere near as bad as the first year when the servers. I believe it was the servers just couldn't keep up with the amount of players that were trying to set up accounts, log in, and play. I remember the first year being a nightmare sometimes. Just you're stuck on that loading screen and it won't let you in. However, I must say in the past 6 months, they have, like, it randomly kicks me out every now and again for no reason. And I don't mean, like, closes the app. I mean, oh, I'm playing Pokemon Go and, oh, it's booted you back to the menu. Or sometimes the menu gets caught up on that loading screen. It just hits halfway. And I don't know, because you don't really play Pokemon Go anymore, do you?
No, I'm not well enough to walk around everywhere.
No, but, well, you could download the dodgy version with the joystick, but then they just ban you.
Exactly, they just throw me out.
Yeah. they just boot you out, unfortunately.
In other Pokemon Go news as well, to coincide with Valentine's Day, you can finally send your shiny heart trim Furfrou to Pokemon Home. I had to read that to make sure I said it right. The shiny version of your heart trim Furfrou can now go from Pokemon Go to Pokemon Home. Apparently that wasn't a thing before, and now it is.
And I have more. That just brings up more questions for me, to be quite honest with you. So, like, was it just this one Pokemon that there was a bug with, or can you not transfer shiny Furfrou, or is it the custom?
I have no idea. I am just reading you the news as I have it written in front of me. It's safer that way. No interpretation. Just as written.
Right. Let's move on to the next piece of news this week. That I've just got written down Masuda. I don't know his full name. Do you?
Junichi Masuda.
Thank you very much. I knew you'd know it. So apparently he's a thief.
He is. He's a dirty thief. He has stolen a whole bunch of the songs in the Pokemon games.
From other games.
From other games? Which, to be fair, he produced for.
Yes.
He did the music for. And the games were made by Game Freak.
Yeah.
So it's not so bad.
It's not so bad. It is. This feels very much just like, can I copy your homework? But I'll change it slightly. But,
it is. And let's not forget that this is back in the days when Game Freak had like 20 guys working there.
Yeah. And like, it's not a big issue for me, to be quite honest with you, because like, I can't. If it was like you had. Okay, right. Is a better example. Let's say Nintendo now had published Mario and Zelda, and they had, 90% of the game music, it would take you out of it because you would think, oh, okay, I've already heard this music in another game. Whereas back then, I can't see there being that much of a shared audience between Pokemon and was it Bushi?
Yes.
I believe. I can't see there being that much of an overlap. And even back then, like, Game Boy music wasn't as... what's the way I'm trying to describe this? Pokemon, the Game Boy music to me back then, because of the way you were limited with how you could compose it, because of the technology it ran on, like it wasn't as noticeable as maybe music is now in games that's fully composed.
Interesting. So I watched a video about this actually.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure there's like 4 or I think there are 6 channels that you can use, audio-wise, but Masuda is famous for only using 4 of them, and some of them like make beats, and some of them make tones, and sometimes you can hold the tones. But he was really good at. I'm not a musical theorist, so I couldn't give you the full breakdown. But he was really good at bringing classical music philosophy into this really limited spectrum, which is why so much of the Pokemon music sticks with us to this day, because it was composed as though it was a classical piece of music.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Oh, that is amazing. If you can, was it a video you watched on that?
Yeah. I'll send it over to you.
Yeah, oh yes, please. I'd be I really want to know more about that. So a couple of the themes. So the opening theme for Gold and Silver just so happens to be very similar to the credits theme from one of the Bushi games. On Twitter, it's Lutu that has published this, and there is a Bushi composed theme that is pretty much identical to the Team Rocket bass in Generation 1.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's really, actually, I before we recorded this podcast, I actually really enjoyed listening to them because it's almost like, it's the songs that I grew up with, that I love, but with a fresh, like, twist on it.
Yeah, it's almost like a remix, except from you're hearing the original version.
Yes. Like, really good. It's absolutely amazing that they did this, and it has taken this long to, like, be discovered, I guess.
Not being funny, but, like, Bushi came out, in 1997, I think it was said?
It was either 6 or 7.
6 or 7, right? Now, Lutu is famous sort of within the Pokemon community for being a historian. That's what he does. That's where he puts his time and effort. And he goes above and beyond, like getting all the assets, getting all the artwork, getting everything updated so it all matches the original but is still of decent quality so it can be used by other YouTubers and stuff. And recently he's been going along and archiving all the music. And he's gone back and looked for Junichi Masuda's earlier work pre-Pokemon, found this and gone, oh, hang on, the people need to know about this. And it's fascinating. It's such a cool bit of lore that we as the Pokemon community now get to add to our knowledge of these games.
It's really amazing. And this is the kind of stuff that the internet was built for. Like the sharing of knowledge and information and just finding out things that you wouldn't actually ever have discovered just on your own. It's only the fact that, this one person has decided to, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to create this, library of the older Pokemon music. And then I wouldn't say it is coincidence, really, isn't it? Because it's not like they heard this and, like, it's not like they heard a rumor or something and they decided to investigate. It was just, okay, this music sounds very similar to this other music that I've just happened to research a little bit about. It's great, and it really does make you wonder what in, the next 5, 10, 15 years' time, like, other people will discover, like, these bits of facts and trivia about Pokemon that, like, look, at the time you'll be thinking, oh, what? How did we not know that?
Well, there's all sorts of, because Pokemon is such a wide-ranging media franchise as well, there's lots of little bits that are lost to history So, for instance, I was watching a video about the Machamp workout website.
Wait,
which is
what?
a thing. There was a Machamp workout website
okay.
that gave you advice on how to work out, and it was super weird, and I loved every minute of it. But yeah, it's such a cool thing. And again, if it's not for the work of people like Lutu, Dr. Love is another one that comes to mind. You know, Sarah B. Joe has been doing it and keeping a lot of stuff up to date as it comes out as news now, and keeping SarahB.net up to date. We have to thank these guys for continuing their work to preserve this fan base, to preserve the history of this franchise.
You're right, because I was only listening to the IGN podcast last week, and one of the people on there, and I can't remember his name, was just talking about there is a whole generation of games that have been lost to time. He was talking about the mobile, before smartphones and mobile games that you could download, and a lot of side scrollers and stuff like that you can't emulate. You can't get a hold of the original files. They are just lost to time. And like it got me thinking about, you know, I used to play this Splinter Cell game on my mobile, and I can remember it in my head, but I'll never be able to relive that or experience that. And I'm pretty sure if I tried to find it on YouTube, I'd probably struggle. So it is credit where it's due for these people who are, you know, their hobbies are just being historians and archiving this knowledge and information that otherwise, if they weren't doing it, could be lost.
Yeah. And it's not it's not just time they're devoting to it as well. You know, there are people out there who are going out of their way to translate interviews and stuff. And it costs a lot to have things translated. So there's real money going into this. And again, I just have to mention my appreciation for the efforts.
Definitely. Agreed. Should we move on to the last bit of news this week?
Yes.
So, the question I want to start with is, where do you stand on Pokemon fusions?
It's something I've been seeing a lot more recently, because I believe it's a new ROM hack called Pokemon Infinite Fusions came out, and they put their fusion calculator online via GitHub. And I've seen it all over Twitter. People have been showing off their favorites. It's been coming up a lot in my YouTube shorts as well, people showing off a bunch of these. And they're really cool. In fact, one of the, what my best ever playthrough series on YouTube is a Fusions playthrough. Because people just really seem to enjoy it. People like the concept. I'm not sure if it'll ever come to an official game, simply because of how much work that would entail. But as a fan idea, sure, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, when I saw this, my first thought is, because of the amount of the level of combinations that are possible, I thought it must be some kind of AI that takes, you know, you're putting the two Pokemon, it takes information from those Pokemon and goes, okay, I'm going to create this new Pokemon from this. Like, almost like when Photoshop, you can use that, I can't remember the tool, it's like, it basically looks at what surrounds it and then creates something in what it believes should be there.
Yeah, we've had something similar before where it, like, used the face and colors of one Pokemon, but the body of another.
Yes.
We've had that for years, but this is more in depth than that.
Well, so
at least sometimes.
Sometimes. So what amazed me by is that when I was on the website and I was looking at the sprites and combining them, it actually says that custom sprites are made by artists on Discord and Reddit. So people are actually taking their time to create these custom sprites. Some of them absolutely amazing. I think at one point who did I combine? I think Meganium and Mewtwo. Yeah. And I was like, okay, that looks pretty cool. Actually, I kind of like that. But then at one point I combined Ghastly and Meganium as well. And not gonna lie, the Meganium one felt very, you know, phoned in. Like, well, let's just move the Ghastly face over the Meganium face and call it quits. And yet, the Ghastly version of Meganium was really good. Like, someone had obviously invested time in like creating the leaves around the Ghastly in a kind of way that, like, they drew inspiration from the original Ghastly.
And you can definitely tell the ones that are generated and the ones that have been designed. So, like, I've just found Beedrill Giratina, which I'll show you because, like...
Oh, whoa!
Yeah. And yet you do it the other way around, as you said, with Giratina Beedrill, and it is just Giratina's head on a Beedrill.
Yeah, it's very hit and miss, unfortunately.
And I think this is the issue you'd have implementing it into a real game, is it would have to be a case of, well, only some Pokemon can do it. And in all honesty, Pokemon Fusion already exists where only some Pokemon can do it.
Yes.
Most of them being legendaries.
So, Kyurem is the one that is probably the most clear-cut in terms of
he's probably the poster
fusion.
child for Fusion.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, you can combine Kyurem with either Zekrom or Reshiram to get a new form, but it's called, is it DNA splicing, or is that the tool that you use?
That's the tool that's used, is the DNA splicer.
But, like we were saying before the podcast, there are other Pokemon that fit the bill, like, of what a fusion technically is. You know, going back to Generation 1, Slowpoke and Shalder becoming Slowbro is a good example. And, like, I know this is technically forms, but Rotom as well has multiple forms, and its fusion is technically with, you know, electrical devices.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that makes perfect sense to me.
So there's already some groundwork there. For me, go on.
I was going to say, I think people are excited about it again because we're being teased with fusion in possible DLC because of the imagination, because of the imaginary Pokemon in the Scarlet and Violet books, the legendary beasts and the Swords of Justice fusions that we've seen. People are thinking it could possibly come.
Potentially. It's really interesting, actually, because if we had no alternative forms or, you know, fusions, I'd have said no. But it's almost like they keep wanting to dip their toe in this.
Yeah.
And experiment, and which makes me think I don't think it'll ever be an outright gimmick, but I think we will get more fusion-style Pokemon.
I agree. I think the issue with doing an outright gimmick is the fact that you can't do everyone, and in that, you're going to upset some people.
Yes, because when we think about the gimmicks that we've had, obviously this generation's gimmick is terrestrialization, and every Pokemon can do it. We look back at Sword and Shield, almost every Pokemon could Dynamax, but then a few special ones got Gigantamax forms. We go back to Generation 7 with the Z moves, and I believe every Pokemon could do it, but then some also got additional ones. So it's only when you go back to actually Generation 6 where Mega Evolution wasn't available for every single Pokemon, and it feels like it would be a step back if you just handpicked a select group of Pokemon for fusions. And let's be honest, the problem with fusions is that it's more Pokemon to design. You already have some of the framework there, but you've still got to spend time creating basically a third Pokemon.
Yeah.
And
which I don't think would be the end of the world. Again, they've come to a point now where they like filling up the Pokedex more with riffs on previous designs rather than new ones. You got regional evolutions, you got paradox forms, mega evolutions, G-Max forms. These aren't new Pokemon. They're just another take on something we've already had.
Yeah, for me, I personally would, rather than them going down the route of like infinite fusions where you can combine any Pokemon, which to me feels messy and unfeasible, it should be a case that maybe we have a Pokemon in the next generation or DLC, whatever it might be, that's their gimmick. So, you know, there's loads of Pokemon that can fuse with this one Pokemon, but they can only fuse with this one Pokemon.
Yeah.
Like, that's its ability.
I could see it. Yeah, I could see it being like a set of Pokemon. So, for instance, like not Paradox Pokemon, but on that level of these Pokemon from this one area can all fuse together in a bunch of different combinations. Yeah. And then that's your subset, and you just branch out from there. And then you don't have to worry about bringing it back for future generations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's that feels a lot more like what Pokemon have done with gimmicks, where typically they were around for one generation. Like, enjoy it while it's here, because it'll eventually be gone.
Yeah.
And I think that's entirely possible. They seem to keep coming back to this, which really does make me think that it is something that will happen again. Whether or not it's as in depth as this, we shall see. I'm one of those that fusions originally I didn't enjoy, but then I got what I was mistaking for fusions were custom forms, and I think it's because like there's two very different things there. Custom forms are you take a Pokemon that you typically already exists, and you give it a new typing, a new color palette. You might change a few things, whereas fusions is very much taking two Pokemon and mashing them together, and you kind of get a third Pokemon. And I was originally against custom forms when I was confusing them with fusions, but the more I've seen about these fusions, the more some of them, like some of them look really, like, what's the word I'm looking for here? They do, like this one that you've sent me with the Giratina and Beedrill. Like the fact that its wings are honey, like it's like someone has really thought about it and gone, okay, right, let me just let my design. Let me just design and just go for it. And what inspires me? And I like. There's some really creative artists out there creating these pixel Pokemon.
There are, and it begs the question, right? So for Pokemon fusions to actually ever be implemented the way people would like it to be, which is all Pokemon confused with every other Pokemon, you would have to crowdsource the art. There's no way Game Freak could do it on their own. But as you say, there's lots of talented artists out there who would love the opportunity to design a Pokemon to go in the Pokemon games. And we've seen Pokemon pull things from ROM hacks before, whether they'll admit it or not. We've seen them pull things from ROM hacks. Do you think Pokemon look at fan art? Or do you think there's like a straight ban on looking at fan art in case they accidentally get inspired and steal something?
So,
the bigger question is, why are they not hiring a bunch of these fan artists?
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's I'm pretty sure we've spoken on the podcast before, like Sega and Nintendo have very different views on fans creating things, either using their assets or creating their own versions of things. And Sega's very much down the line of, oh, that's really good. We'll actually pay you to make that into a game, or yeah, that's fine. Go ahead and create that. As long as you aren't taking away from our things, it's fine. Whereas Pokemon doesn't feel like that. It feels very much a case of, oh, they've done that and that ROM hack. Well, ROM hacks we don't agree with, therefore we'll never put that into a mainline game. That's how it feels to me. It's almost like this is our stance and we're not budging on it, because the problem is that the moment we budge on it, then it's a case of
you've opened the doors.
You've opened the doors, and other people then are trying to go, okay, it almost feels to me like if they budged their stance and went, okay, right, that ROM hack that you did, there's elements we would like to incorporate in the next Pokemon game. Well, then, for me, it just opens up a load of people going, okay, I'm going to throw out as many ROM hacks and bad ideas and good ideas as I can on the hope that one of them sticks and Pokemon notices me. And I think then it would dilute the ROM hack community, which there is some things in there that I really don't care for, but there are some really good things that come out of the community.
Agreed. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not a big fan of these, like, edgy teenager mods where you get to play a dark story where you're older, but you swear, and the world is all gritty, and everybody's dark, and, like, I don't need any of that. But again, some of the difficulty ROM hacks, some of the story modifications. There's a recent one that came out that's like set in a past with it's all like knights and chivalry and stuff, which I'm really looking into at the moment.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, super cool. I again, I will say it over and over again. I hope someday Pokemon, Game Freak, Nintendo open themselves up to fan creation. I don't see it happening. As we say, it's going to be like, oh, you can't open the door because then it'll all flood through. And it's like, guys, it's already open.
Yeah, exactly.
The door is open. You can't just ignore it and hope it goes away.
Because it is not going away. And if anything, it's like the more things. So, if anything, it's just going to get stronger. Because as Pokemon evolves over time, it's like, oh yeah, so Gigantamaxing and Dynamaxing, yeah, we haven't got that in the games anymore. Terrestrializing, we haven't got that in the games. There will be a subsection of the community that goes, I want a game that has all of it. Like, I want all that in a game, and therefore I'm going to do it myself. And the fact that, like, the anime is just, like, the last week when we were talking about the fight between Mega Lucario versus Gigantamax Machamp, it just makes me want to see that in a game now. Because I want to see those matchups that you can't get in the mainline games. And the further Pokemon goes down the line of we're removing this, we're cutting this, still adding quality of life features, which they, credit to them, they are making the Pokemon games more accessible in terms of it takes less time to do the core things that you want, but they're stripping out so many other things like XP share and, shift and set and things like that there's going to be a segment of the community that still wants that. And if Game Freak won't fulfill it for them, they'll do it themselves.
They'll find it elsewhere and do it themselves. Yeah.
Yep.
And do you know what? Weirdly enough, to bring it full circle again, there's been a lot of fusion, not just ROM hacks of like, Fire Red, which is what a lot of the ROM hacks are based on, but even Scarlet and Violet, Sword and Shield, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, have all had fusion hacks implemented into them, where you take the base model of one Pokemon and put the colors of a different Pokemon on top of it. And some of them are, again, much like these, are specifically designed, but it's the sort of thing of like, well, we'll take the stats from one and the typing from another. And that's simple enough to put in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Which makes me think, though, that the more popular that becomes, the less likely they are to put it in the mainline games.
How so?
Unfortunately. Because the more it goes back to what I've said about their stance of this is where we're putting our feet in the ground. If you are just creating all this using our assets, like, we're not going to tolerate that. And the way we don't tolerate that is we just don't include it in mainline games.
Okay, is it using their assets at a certain point, though? Like, if people are going out of their way to design new sprites, okay, yes. So going back to this Beedrill Giratina one, yes, it's clearly based on Giratina, but is it that, it's only 30%? It's technically its own thing now. It's an OC. It doesn't count, right? It's not stealing anymore.
Oh, now that is so I'm not going down that rabbit hole because, like, there are lawyers that would argue either way.
I am not one of them.
Wow. It's like, okay, right. Is it stealing at that point, or is it just being inspired? I don't know.
Depends if you call it Pokemon.
Yes, yeah, it really does. I know that if you put that Beedrill Giratina in a Pokemon game that has used the base code, like, you're probably not getting away with that, although they do. I do want to see more fusions. I personally think that it will never be an out-and-out generational gimmick, unfortunately.
Yeah, agreed.
Shall we, I very quickly, like, 1 minute, do you think there'll be anything Pokemon related in today's Nintendo Direct? or Wednesday.
Oh, no
if you're
shot.
listening to it.
No shot. We'll get
dude.
a actual Pokemon Direct later on this month, which we will obviously try and cover on the podcast. So no, it's not going to happen.
There you go, less than a minute. Perfect. Let's move on to Pokemon Master Journeys. It's the last 3 episodes of this season.
Of before Ultra Journeys, yeah.
Before Ultra Journeys. It's sad. I feel a little bit sad about this.
Why? Because it wasn't a great ending.
No, not that. Well, not that, but it's the fact that I've been watching all these episodes on Netflix and the next season isn't on there.
Yet. I think it's coming like this week.
Oh, wow, really? Oh, that's perfect.
I think we timed this perfectly.
Oh, wow, it's almost like we planned it. We didn't plan it.
We're just that good.
Coincidence, just that good.
The same as like it always seems to work out for us doing 3 episodes at a time and then skipping the odd one.
Odd one. It just works out for whatever reason. So, let's start out with the first episode of the 3 this week. Looking out for number 2, and it's another trial mission.
Yeah.
One to test. Was it adaptability and something else? I can't remember what else. Ingenuity and adaptability. That's it. And Go just jumps in the deep end and decides to catch a wild Kingdra, which fine. Okay, let's go down this route. And the first
I was under the impression that Kingdra didn't evolve in the wild.
Yes, that was the first thing for me. And the second thing is we're off to Hoenn and not Johto.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Which I was like, oh, right, okay, fine, whatever. I can get on board with that because Pokemon do appear in multiple regions. I just feel a little bit gutted that this, to me, was an opportunity to, I don't know, just to go back to Johto again. Feels like...
I mean, this could have been... Because they introduced Drake, which is cool. Fair enough. We like Drake. Bit of a...
Wait, no, it's Blake. It's Blake, isn't it?
No, it's definitely Drake. He seems a little bit out of place here. And actually, his introduction made me realize how impossible this task really should have been for Go.
Oh, yes.
But I don't know. I could have seen them going back to Johto and meeting Claire, who has a Kingdra.
It just seems...
could have showed them where to get one.
Yeah, it just seems strange to me that, like, I don't understand why they went to the Hoenn region and not, like, literally the Dragon's Cave in Johto.
They clearly wanted to use Drake. That was clearly what they wanted to do.
But you could have had Drake anywhere. Like, the characters travel. We've already established that. And the fact that they're just on an ocean, that ocean could have been anywhere. I mean, to be fair, Go's idea to try and track down the Kingdra by using the Chinchou and the Lucario to use and detect sonar waves, like, fair play. Go is, once again, showing how clever he is and how he can adapt to situations. By the way, Drake without a hat really
kind of
threw
cursed,
me.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't like... I don't know what I expected, but whatever it wasn't that. It was just really, really weird. Anyway, the team go underwater, comes across a Seadra, but as Go says, his mission is to catch a wild Kingdra. It's not to evolve one. Bizarrely, though, he catches a Sharpedo in the most casual way possible.
Well, how else was he going to do it? He proves to you that he can't throw Pokeballs underwater.
But I just expected Sharpedo to almost be the bad guy of the episode where, okay, I can't catch it, therefore I just need to get away from it. Instead, the Sharpedo just kind of bonks into his Pokeball. I was like, okay, like literally on accident. But what I love about that is the fact that later on the episode, he gets it out and he's like, yeah, we're cool now. I'll just obey it. It's like, wait, what? You had this wide open ocean that you could explore, and now you're just going to follow this kid just because you happen to bump into his little Pokeball. Anyway, Go, apparently. Again, Go showing off his smarts, figuring out that you use a whirlpool to find a Kingdra, and bizarrely, showing a video of Dragonite to draw out the Kingdra after it was previously established that if a Dragonite appears, Kingdra will 100% fight it.
Yeah. I mean, for a lot of this, Go is shown to be smart and brave and uses ingenuity and uses resources to, like, befriend people and get hold of equipment. But he should have never been able to pull this off.
Oh, agreed. We said this last time, though, didn't we? I swear.
No, that was the Ninetales thing, right? Was it the Ninetales he did last time? No, he did a actual test. Oh, the freaking Volcarona, the Golden Volcarona. Yeah, he should have never been able to do that either.
That's it. Yes, I knew there was another. It feels very Go completes it, but he shouldn't be able to.
Yeah, he is either the luckiest person in the world. Like, think about it. They only managed to do this because they ran into Drake, who just happened to have a boat with diving equipment that went low enough into the ocean minus 10 minutes.
Yes.
Because, of course, they had to do the thing where it's like, here, take this extra oxygen, but it only lasts for 10 minutes. I wonder if they'll need it. Of course they're going to need it.
Yeah, and this goes back to what we've said previously of, like, why are they sending them on these missions that, like, are very dangerous?
Yeah.
Like, why is it not, like we said last time, okay, there are a number of missions that Project Mu needs to fulfill. What are the ones that doesn't really matter about the success but aren't really dangerous? Right, they're the ones we assign this child to.
Well, I suppose the idea being that if you're going to be part of the team, we need to show that you can pull your weight as well as anybody else. Nobody here is going to carry you.
That's a good point, yeah. That is a good point. I've only got a handful of notes, like using Inteleon's snipe shot to force the Pokeball into Kingdra. That was a nice little touch. I enjoyed that. While all this is going on, the rest of the team track down Regirock, and I'm suddenly thinking this is all a bit sus, to be honest with you. And I've just got a note of, are Project Mu actually evil?
I don't think so, but I can see what you're going with. With this, usually anyone with this much interest in legendary Pokemon are evil teams.
Typically, yes. Which, in the fact they are tracking down legendary. If they were just happenstance coming across legendaries, then that's one thing. But the fact that, they've tracked down this Regirock, there was a Regice in an earlier episode, which I think was coincidence, but them being in that area wasn't.
Yeah, but he still turned around. He was like, "I'll be back for you."
Yeah, he wasn't he? Yeah, because he just casually one-shotted it. So I think there's something bigger going on here, and I actually the two big things I am really looking forward to next season are obviously Ash forefront, just how he succeeds in his goal. The other thing is this Project Mu. I want to see where this is going.
I have a feeling it's not going anywhere.
Oh, don't tell me that. No,
I have
really?
a genuine feeling.
Oh.
Because think about it. We've got, 24 episodes or something next season?
Is that it?
I think so. Well, part 1 is 12 episodes.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, I can double check now. But it's not a lot of time to get through. I mean, Ash still isn't in the Masters 8.
No, exactly.
He's still in the Ultra class, so that's got to happen. We've still got to finish off Chloe seeing all the rest of the evolutions, and Go's got to team up with Project Mu. It feels like there's a lot to be done here.
Yeah, I think you're right, actually. Which is a shame because I really wanted to know where this goes. Like, it has all the elements of a good story of, a young kid actually thinks he's doing good, and it turns out he's been working for the bad team who have been tracking down these legendaries, and it's all part of this conspiracy. Like, that's where my headcanon's kind of at and where I want it to go, but maybe not.
Yeah. We'll have to see. I've got my fingers crossed for it. I hope for the best.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Let's move on to the last 2 episodes, which kind of form one episode as they normally do. So we have the Gates of Warp and Showdown at the Gates of Warp. And this is a big episode when literally the very start of it is Dialga and Palkia having, just being siblings and falling out.
Yeah. Good times. Those two are always at it.
They are always... out of all the legendary Pokemon, outside of probably Kyogre and Groudon, Palkia and Dialga feel like the ones that would fight the most.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, it's supposed to be the case that whenever one of them encroaches on the other one's territory, they will always go to war.
Wow, I love that. I absolutely love that. But it almost feels like you've got Giratina like in the background just egging them on, and Arceus is the parent that has to come in and like, right, okay, split it up. I've had enough. Sort it out.
Arceus is the Rayquaza of that trio.
Yes.
It is a case of like, all right, don't make me put you in a corner.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I absolutely love that. So straight off the bat, it has a strong start. You've got Dialga and Palkia kicking off, and then you've got Team Rocket, but you don't fully see them. They're kind of emerged in shadows. But straight away, you know something's off.
Because they seem competent.
They seem very competent, yes. Which I don't think we've ever truly had our Team Rocket feel this sure themselves.
No.
Gates opening all throughout. Dawn's Piplup runs off, finds one of the gates, and who do we find? Well, I've got here that it's a future version of Dawn as I was writing, but it's not a future version of Dawn. It's an alternate version of Dawn. So these are a
thing that we have in this universe now.
Apparently, we've gone from time travel, which fine, we knew that was a thing, to confirmation of the multiverse in the anime. I don't know if we've had that yet. I haven't seen all the episodes. I know that it's been confirmed that the video games are a multiverse. Like, what you do in your version of Pokemon Platinum is different than what somebody else does in their version of Pokemon Platinum, because they are all happening and they're all part of this multiverse, and that's what we've got now in the anime. One thing I did like, I should laugh about this. Dawn does the right, in any TV show or movie, it's like, why didn't they just go to the police?
Yeah.
Dawn does go to the police, and she just doesn't help whatsoever. Her answer isn't to go, right, okay, let's figure out what we can do. It is, other people are experiencing the same thing. Okay, you think you should probably do something about this, officer? Nah, I'm good. Like, what?
I'm going to leave it to 3 children. 4 children.
3 children.
4 children. Because Chloe gets involved for reasons unknown.
Chloe once again.
Because Chloe gets involved because her alternate universe self is an elite hacker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, fine.
So I'm gonna talk about these 2 episodes as if they're one and bounce back and forth. The alternate universe versions of these 4 are really odd. Like, Go's alternate version is really outgoing. I liked how he got hold of him, though. He was like, hang on, what if I ring my own number?
Which is great.
Genius. Absolutely love it. But so he's really outgoing and clearly must still, like, work at the research lab because he's still got all the same Pokemon he has in our universe.
Yes. So there's obviously a link there, like, in terms of certain things they've done.
Chloe's a elite hacker who can hack into Team Rocket and work out what suits they're using to avoid Dialga's powers and just create them. Apparently. It's nanotech. I'm surprised there wasn't. It's nanotech. And then you've got Ash, who sucks.
Yeah, Ash is the one that his alternative, like all the other alternative counterparts. Well, no, going Chloe's counterparts, I'm like, yeah, I probably want to hang around with them more than maybe the versions we've got. But Dawn's and Ash's alternative counterparts are just very sad.
Well, Dawn wasn't so bad for me. I feel like Dawn was just a case of like, I'm sorry, I liked your Piplup because it reminded me of my Piplup, and Dawn or alternate universe Dawn is just a way of getting exposition across. Ash just, again, I thought at the beginning it was like, oh, right, they've made him sad because he doesn't have his best friend Pikachu. That's what our Ash would be like. But no, he's just a wimp. Yeah,
I get, yes. Because, like, in our universe, Ash, you take away Pikachu, and he's still Ash. He's still outgoing. He still knows what his values are, and he knows what he's fighting for. Whereas alternative Ash, like, you could take him out of this episode. I don't think anything changes.
Well, let's put it this way. The fact that alternate universe Ash hasn't already started trying to figure out the issue. He's just gone, oh, well, Pikachu's an egg now. I guess this is my life. Could you imagine our Ash ever doing that?
No, definitely not. He would just figure it out and go for it, and yeah. One thing that we haven't spoken about is Pokemon devolving, reverting back, like, which it's. I give it a pass because it's time and space shenanigans. Like, it's fine. I get it. It doesn't completely sit right with me, I guess, especially when they explain that, oh no, it isn't just the Pokemon that are reverting back. It's people as well.
People are doing it too, but Pokemon do it slower in their Pokeballs, but people are doing it a lot slower anyway.
Yeah.
Until they get really close to Dialga and Palkia and then get zapped by Time Beam.
Oh, yes. It's, like, the thing that annoyed me ever so slightly is the fact that, like, the Pokemon reverting back wasn't consistent. It was just plot points of, we need to fight, throw out the Pokemon, oh, they've all, like, devolved. Right, what do we do? Like, really infuriating when shows and TVs do that, where they come up with a plot point, but they don't incorporate it properly. One thing that we haven't spoken about, Cynthia.
Yeah. Cynthia's in this episode, I guess.
It, like, really...
She doesn't do anything.
She doesn't really, unfortunately. Like, she goes toe-to-toe, and I can't believe I'm saying this, goes toe-to-toe with Team Rocket's Meowth, who...
wrecks her Garchomp.
Wow. Like, this Meowth is just busted. It does have the addition of technology, but...
It also just knows more moves. It knows Dark Pulse and Slash. As opposed to our Meowth, which I'm pretty sure still only knows Scratch. Because it's never, ever won a fight.
Is he
so
not?
It's never gained any experience.
I love that. So, like, yeah, Cynthia being in here, again, one of those things where, you know, take her out, it doesn't actually change the outcome of these episodes, but I get that we need to start bigging up the future trainers that Ash is going to have to fight. Which makes me think, is Cynthia possibly one of the first ones he takes on, because we've had her twice in quick succession?
We'll have to see.
I don't know the answer to that, by the way. I'm just genuinely
I know, which is why I'm not saying anything. We'll have to see.
Okay, right. So that's all my notes for the first part. For the second part, we head to Rowan's lab, and I actually had to double take and rewind this part, because Nurse Joy appears, and Rowan says all nurses should be seen and not heard. And I was like, what?
What? Like, I don't care what universe you're in. That's not okay.
I was like, I was sat there. My first thought was, I've misheard that. And I played it back, and I was like, okay, there's a lot to unpack about this alternative universe then. But it makes sense, because it's James and Jesse. Not that our James, I don't think, would ever say that.
No.
But
our James loves women.
It does, yeah. But this alternative Team Rocket seem... I think the reason they are more competent is probably because they are more cruel.
Yeah.
Whereas our Team Rocket...
They got heart.
They have got, underneath all that bravado and just what makes them them, they deep down do have hearts of gold. They do. Whereas these ones do not. So everyone, of course, knows to go straight to Spear Pillar. This is the part where we've got the alternative versions that have figured out, we can just create the same equipment that Team Rocket has, and our Pokemon will be fine. And of course, the way that this all gets resolved is just the power of love, I guess. Hope.
They pray. They pray to Arceus.
Yes. Which...
They literally stick their hands together and say, Arceus, I want Pokemon to exist. Please make these two stop being little...
Wow, I was really confused for a moment there. So there are a few other things I want to just want to break it out here. We've got the red chain, from which was introduced in Legends Arceus. Is that right? No,
red chain's been there since
it has,
Diamond and Pearl.
Oh, because
it's what Cyrus uses is to capture them.
That's it, because he gets it from the 3 Lake Guardians. Is that right?
Correct.
Yes, right. Okay. How do you break it? If you're Pichu, you just headbutt it.
Oh, he fails to break
just
it,
kidding.
Be fair.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Not surprising. Tell you what, though, some of the animations in this final fight are beautiful. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's almost like the characters move and the black outline from them extends to help cut between scenes. It's beautiful. Like,
it's very
beautiful.
sketchy.
Yes.
But in a beautiful way. You're right. I noticed that as well. I didn't know if that was like to play into, because obviously this is supposed to promote Legends Arceus, and I think there's technically a Legends Arceus tie-in movie that follows this.
There is,
a special episode, which I watched. I was lucky enough to watch live at World Championships.
Yep.
Which is why I'm kind of sick of Cynthia, because you see her show up on screen and a bunch of nerds go, "Ah!" You're like, all right, okay, bored of you now.
Wow, okay, so
but
Cynthia,
I won't lie, I did the same thing when Brock took his top off. So,
oh wow, I didn't realize you did that. Okay, so what did you make of like wrapping up this? They've done what they did in the previous season. Of the last 3 episodes are, a big story climax. That I say climax of the story. It really just comes out of nowhere, doesn't it? Like, do you think this worked?
So for me, very little happened, and it still felt rushed. This just did not land for me. I wasn't a fan of like alternate worlds. I don't think that did much for us. No. Yeah, there was no growth or anything from this either. Like, you think at the end of the last season, you've got the whole Eternatus story. Ash works with Leon. Go gets to learn what researching's all about and to uncovering a mystery. It was really intense, and there was a lot going on there. This had none of that.
Yeah, the end of the last season, I still maintain that it wasn't as strong as it could have been, but at least it did in some way feel like, okay, we've had a couple of plot points throughout the season that have led to this. It makes sense. These last 2 episodes, like, before you even mentioned about a tie-in with Legends Arceus, like, it was in the back of my mind thinking, this is very close to Legends Arceus, like, in terms of these Pokemon fighting, and, it's based in the Sinnoh-Hisuian region. Like, it feels like there's been no build up to these 2 episodes. It's just kind of, here we are, it's here for 35, 40 minutes, and would this have been better placed as a movie where you could delve more into multiple universes? And if you're gonna do multiple universes, like, have more fun with them. That's the whole point of doing multiple universes. Like, how good would it have been if, Ash gets through, okay, there's somebody catching Pokemon. Oh, it's an alternative version of me. And which is the stronger Ash? The Ash that cares for his Pokemon, or the Ash that is cruel and sadistic and just uses Pokemon as tools?
Yeah. I mean, let's face facts. The only difference between these universes, other than one of them is being affected quicker than the other by the sort of time reversion thing, is that one of them doesn't have flowers. That's literally the only difference they show us. And I'm like, is that because the Pokemon are gone? Is that because the flowers are reverting too? What is the connection here with no flowers? But I don't think the flowers come back at the end either. So it's just a universe without flowers. That's the one difference. That's the timeline they're in.
There you go. That's what we take away from these 2 episodes, is the difference between universes. Plants. Just plants.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the next season, and if it is a shorter season, it gives me hope that there will be less filler and more plot-driven episodes following Ash, Go, and some of Chloe. I don't want as many as Chloe, because she's the one I'm least invested in. And to be fair, out of the 3 of them, she's the one where I'm still not sure where her story's going.
I don't think it's going anywhere. I double-checked, by the way, it's 40 episodes.
Oh, still? Okay, right, okay. Oh, okay, right. So, scratch what I just said. Plenty of filler episodes, then. Great.
I don't know, there's still a lot to get through, even just for Ash's story. Do you think a lot of those main battles, right? Top 8. So you're talking about each of those being at least 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And then they've got to battle each other as well.
Yeah.
Like he's not the only fights he's got to have. So and he's still got to get into the Ultra class, or sorry, the Masters 8. Like there's so much to do. Anyway,
are you up for playing a game?
Oh, I guess so.
Perfect! In front of me, I have 3 Pokemon with 3 Pokedex entries each. But Connor, can you spot the fake entry? I realized when I was writing this, so I only wrote these earlier on today, and it's only when we've been talking about the previous episodes that I completely messed up, because one of them was meant to be Kingdra, and I completely forgot to do it. However, I still do have 3 Pokemon. The first one is Dialga, Pokedex entry number 1. It has the power to control time. It appears in Sinnoh region myths as an ancient deity. Entry number 2. A legendary Pokemon of Sinnoh. It is said that time flows when Dialga's heart beats. And the third and final Pokedex entry. Dialga's temporal powers possess the ability to devolve anything or anyone against their will. Pokemon, humans, and plants.
Okay, interesting. I don't like the first one. It feels way too matter of fact, but the third one's also based on the episode. So would you have just written that because that's a thing that happened? Possibly. I'm going to stick with my initial gut instinct and go with the first one.
Okay, it was the third one.
Yeah, of course it was.
Of course it was. Of course it was. Pokemon number 2 is Palkia. It has the ability to distort space. It is described as a deity in Sinnoh region mythology. Pokedex entry number 2.
Press X to doubt.
Pokedex entry number 2. Palkia has complete control over all space. With every breath it takes, the universe expands. Final Pokedex entry. It is said to live in a gap in the spatial dimension parallel to ours. It appears in mythology.
The second one.
You sure?
No, but I'm sticking with it.
Correct. It is, in fact, the second one. What gave it away?
Nothing gave it away. So the first one was obviously very similar to the one I guessed last time, which turned out to be true. So I was like, okay, maybe they're from the same region. That makes sense. And then the space between worlds, again, it was just something that got said in the episodes we just watched. So I was like, fine, let's just go with the other one.
Okay, very well done. So the final Pokemon is Arceus. So Pokedex entry number 1. Its true form is unknown and incomprehensible. It is everywhere all at once. Entry number 2. It is the heavenly fount from which pours the light that shines across Hisui. Its luminance guides and protects all Pokemon. Hisuian mythology states that Arceus is the creator of all things. And the final Pokedex entry. It is said to have emerged from an egg in a place where there is nothing, then shaped the world.
Okay, so it's the first one.
Why are you so confident?
I've not long been looking into Unknown and how it relates to Arceus. So I've read a lot of the Arceus Pokedex entries.
Okay, interesting. You are correct. Well done. Well done. 2 out of 3. Very well done. You're getting closer because you got 2 out of 3 last week, didn't you?
I keep getting 2 out of 3, and it's usually the one that I'll get wrong. I'll be like, it's either this or this.
Yeah. Always a 50-50
and it's always the
shot.
other one that I talk myself out of.
You are getting close to that 3 out of 3 again, I think. It's coming.
Only happened, what, twice?
Twice, but I've got a feeling it will happen in the next few. You're getting very good at figuring me out.
We'll find out soon.
Let's move on to comments and questions. Tony, once again, has been in touch on YouTube. What's your favorite terrible opinion about your favorite Pokemon game? One that you just don't agree with. Sorry, Conor, I don't think I told you this before the episode.
No, you didn't, but I know my answer immediately.
Wow, okay.
The scaling in Johto is bad. The level scaling in Johto is bad.
Okay. Why?
So my favorite game in the Pokemon franchise is Heart Gold Soul Silver, and they fixed a lot of the level curve in that to begin with. Granted, in Gold Silver Crystal, it wasn't great, but it was designed so that you could fight 3 gyms in any order you wanted. Okay? Coming off the back of like Scarlet and Violet, where I've complained like, oh, we can fight the gyms in any order we want, except from you can't because of the levels. You could literally fight them in any order you wanted. Granted, you would be slightly over-leveled for some of them.
Yeah.
But I just don't think it's as big of an issue as people make it out to be. It like a couple of years ago, everybody agreed that Johto was probably the best region. Heart Gold, Soul Silver still at the top of a lot of people's lists, but it came off the back of, and I don't want to point fingers, but I think a lot of it came off the back of Jan from Pokemon Challenges, who kind of said like, oh, the level curve in Johto sucks and nobody ever talks about it. And since then, it's been a running theme of everybody's like, oh no, Johto sucks actually. It's like, it doesn't. It's really good. It's really good. It's the best region. Oh, sorry, it winds me up. Anyway.
So mine, this is going to be controversial. The post-game in Generation 2 probably gets as much praise as it does because of nostalgia, rather than it actually being a good post-game, because it is over very fast. The Pokemon, the gym leaders, while strong, still aren't, I don't think, as strong as they should be. The Pokemon in the wild areas and the routes, the scaling, again, is just a nightmare, because it makes sense from in-game perspective of, well, the Pokemon in those routes were this low level in the previous game. However, you know, it's a bit of a pain when you come off the boat, you go into Diglett's cave, it's like, oh, these are all really weak Pokemon and my Pokemon are over-leveled. And the only the main saving grace is obviously red. But I think that the post-game of Generation 2 is held up as this amazing post-game content, when I don't think it's as good as most people. I think people are a bit blinded by nostalgia. That's going to get some comments.
I think it's the experience. It's the experience that it provides you rather than challenge. If we were talking about challenge, then it's all about Pokemon Emerald's, Battle Frontier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that would be the best post-game ever. But people still like the idea of going back to Kanto. People still like the idea of revisiting previous regions and having that whole area to explore, and the thing behind it that, like, they weren't thinking they were going to be able to do it, and then somebody came in last minute and crunched the whole game down so they were actually able to fit it in. It's an incredible story, and as Gold and Silver were designed to be the last Pokemon games, it was a beautiful ending. The fight with Red at the top of Mount Silver and stuff like that is the best post-game fight we've ever had. Granted, it's not very hard. He's just very high level. But I don't know. I can see what you're saying, that it is fairly short and, not all that intensive, other than Blue and Red at the very end, who are just a massive level bump.
So, like, for me, don't get me wrong, I still love the post-game. I remember playing that as a kid and be like, oh my, I am going back to the region of the first game and to discover that it's next door neighbors. But it's only when I played it, when I started doing YouTube, and I was like, oh, this is it? This is like, when your memories don't correlate with what you're currently experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, okay. But anyway, I still love it, but I just don't think it's as good as some people might remember. If you've got a comment or question, you can reach us by leaving a comment on our podcast on YouTube, by emailing goldenrodpod@gmail.com, or by leaving it on our Discord channel. Conor, what have you got coming up at the moment?
At the moment, I'm working on that video that I alluded to earlier about the true meaning behind unknown. Hopefully that should be out this week sometime. So look forward to that one.
Is the true meaning behind unknown known or unknown?
To be confirmed.
What have I got coming up at the moment? Did I talk about Scarlet and Violet mods last week?
No.
Oh, okay.
I
modded Pokemon Scarlet. I played about 3 hours of it. I'm condensing the video into just a shorter, like 5-10 minute video. Basically, I just threw in a load of mods that I thought were funny, interesting, hilarious. Some of the mods don't work
any of
well
them
together.
fusions?
None of them are fusions. However, some of the mods cause unexpected and unintended side effects that are just ridiculous. And I don't want to give more away, to be quite honest with you, because like it was one of those things where I was playing it, and for the first hour I was like, oh, I've got a few things I can get out of this, but I was a little bit worried about like, oh, I think this might only be a couple of minutes long. And then I don't know what it was, but it's almost like everything happened at once. And there are parts where I'm in stitches because the game obviously cannot handle some of these mods clashing with one another. Like, you know, this mod says you need to change this, but then this other mod changes parts of the same, probably coding. And the outcome of that is amazing. So I'm probably editing that this week to get it live next week at some point. That's the main thing that I'm working on. Outside of I need to record the script for the Cyclers Are Only video, so that'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks as well. And that's the show for it. Thank you. And that's the show for this week. If you've gotten this far, you're just a top dollar, aren't you? Connor, where can we find you?
You can find me on my YouTube channel at Captain Fidget or on Twitter at CapFidget.
And I'm Ben. You can find me as Professor Hoenn Gaming on YouTube and Professor Hoenn on Twitter. As for the Goldenrod Podcast, you can find us on the usual platforms. Search for Goldenrod Podcast on YouTube or on your usual podcast app. Leave a like on YouTube or a 5-star review if you're listening as a podcast. We'll be back next Friday for another week of Pokemon podcast content.
See ya!